How's it going, ladies and bruises? I'm Bobby Sixkilla and welcome back to Sekimeiya. Now, I don't even know what to comment on this at the moment. It's turning into crazy pants over here, but we'll just continue on and see what happens next, I suppose. No need for formalities, let's jump in, shall we? I waited next to the door. From there, the whole floor seemed sullen. I need my glasses, don't I? I always forget, don't I? Edna had completely passed out. She hadn't moved an inch. And as the seconds passed, I kept wondering where Atsuki and the other me were. I didn't get it. Was I not properly remembering what had happened? I looked up at the camera. Was I being recorded in two different places simultaneously? What? The green light still wasn't there. That's odd. The Sekimeiya was in my hands. I'd gotten distracted, so I hadn't left it in the cabinet. However, I'd also noticed something else that was strange, which had made me very reluctant to follow through with that. I didn't have to wait long before I heard a door opening. It sounded like someone had come from the lobby. Again, it's more than one person. Are they going to go to the bathrooms? They did. Then another door was opened. I knew it must have been the staff rooms. It really is us. What the hell then? Has to be... It is. That was Atsuki. I remember what we did. After checking that Naomi's locker was still open, we found the Sekimeiya in a drawer in room B6. We brought it to the event room. And then we found Katai and Edna. As predicted, the steps eventually moved to the event room. If I'm not mistaken, they'll come here soon. My tension grew, but I had to be fine as long as I didn't make noise. Meanwhile, I kept wondering what to do with the Sekimeiya that I had. I could be sure that there had always been two of them, as we had just locked one in its cabinet. There was no remaining doubt in my mind that I was right, so I waited. After finding Katai, it hadn't taken us very long to come across Edna, and that was reflected by the sound behind the door. Mere minutes after it had faded, the lobby door opened again. I knew full well the desperate atmosphere we'd experienced was as we'd looked in every room. After that repeated, they'd opened the door next to me and I was forced to relive the shock of seeing Edna's bloody body through their sharp gasps. Atsuki took 2 steps forwards and I heard my past self crumple down. Hidden behind the door, I held my breath. That's it, I can't look at her. Let's go. Slowly Atsuki turned around. I couldn't see it, but I felt the despair that came from them. Give me a second. Before they left, Atsuki detached the curtain from the cabinet closest to him and covered Edna with it. I exhaled. I may have been in the same world I come from originally, but there were loads of things I didn't understand. So now what? The Sekimeiya entailed a little dilemma. I wanted to leave it behind, but that potentially created its own problem. Oh, this is what happened. When I thought ahead, the answer to a persistent question was finally answered. I just trapped myself. I'd been going one step at a time, so I hadn't realised the direct result of what I'd done. After finding Edna, we went to the event room, and Atsuki sat next to the hallway A door. I finally understood the reason why he'd seen me, and why that would repeat. I'm trapped. As soon as I leave this room, Atsuki will hear and see me. That's what woke him up. And if I have to leave, and I had to leave, if I stayed here for much longer, a search would eventually find me. That wasn't all. I knew Edna would soon wake up, and I had reason to think that Sai would search the room I was in fairly soon. I had to leave. And as soon as I did, I would force our past selves out of the event room. I had a Sekimeiya with me, so teleporting out might have been possible. However, I couldn't risk that, as touching it had been what had sent me to the other world before. In the event room, I'd fallen asleep very quickly. I'd been very tired that day. I could feel a similar exhaustion. I'd been in the tower for many hours already, but fortunately, they'd been much less dense. After I leave, Atsuki will call for me, and I won't appear. Unbelievable as it seemed, that aligned with what I wanted. So it made sense it had occurred. I could watch what had happened from a distance, and there was something I was curious about. However, I could tell there was yet another reason. It would have caused a problem that I was finally sure existed. I couldn't appear before my old self. It was Isla's problem. If I interacted with my past self, and she later didn't want to change things, she'd have to replicate exactly what she'd seen me doing. Every word, every movement. That would be a phenomenon devoid of any sense. That was why it was very important not to be seen by both her and Atsuki. A certain time was approaching. There was something I'd been avoiding thinking about. On that mountain I made a decision. To change the past and save everyone. Mia, Isla, Edna, Katai and Naomi. While that reality seemed distant, it was as close as ever. The time I'd found the Sekimeiya in the water tank would soon come. At that point, the Sekimeiya had shot me quite far through time, even though I didn't know why. When I go to the bathroom, I have to stop my old self. That should let the Sekimeiya store even more energy, so if I touch it later, I'll go to November again, to a time before Mia died. That was all I had to do. If I changed the past in just the right way, accomplishing what I decided was well in reach. And yet, I didn't know what to do. Hadn't I also decided that going to the past had been a mistake? If I didn't interfere, my past self would travel, and I would become myself again. I could just leave with Atsuki. But is that even the case? Would that really be possible? The Atsuki from this morning said that the recording was real. We won't simply leave at 9 o'clock. And that wasn't all. He was suspicious of me, and asked if I was a real Shiroya. Why? What happened after I travelled? Up until then, my safety had been guaranteed because Atsuki had seen me late into the day. Beyond that point, however, I couldn't be confident about anything. On top of that, it was the fact that I'd never been mentioned in the recording. I'd also recalled that I'd been seen later, wearing the clothes from the attic. That had just been vaguely mentioned though, so I didn't know what it was about. I looked down. When the Sekimeiya had begun to get too hot, I left it on the floor. It was a bit difficult to decide what to do with it. My intention was to leave it in that cold cabinet, but I think something's odd about that. Once I leave, our past selves will go to the attic. Then, while they're returning, the elevator will be intercepted and Sai will chase them. They'll all end up in the event room, where Sai's attitude will flip. Something we didn't figure out was how he managed to not be found in hallway B, when Atsuki searched through every room. If I left the Sekimeiya in that cabinet, they'll give him a way out. He could have disappeared by touching it. That was why I thought that he must have been about to investigate the room and find out that the Sekimeiya was there. At that point, another Sekimeiya was in the event room. If there are only two, the only way Sai could have disappeared from one of these rooms is with the Sekimeiya that I have now. I would keep it cold. So to travel, he would have to take it out, wait for Atsuki to investigate the other rooms, and touch it as soon as this one was about to be searched. But it's not so straightforward because according to Atsuki, he looked in every cabinet. If that's what happened, he should have seen the Sekimeiya. Is it possible it teleported after Sai used it? I'm not sure about that anymore. That was what seemed odd. Up until that point, everything I'd done that had matched with what I'd already lived through had contained a purpose. The clothes, showing myself, the elevator. I hadn't repeated anything without a reason. So then, what was going on? Would I leave the Sekimeiya there to give Sai a way to escape, simply to avoid changing the past? It was weird because I'd realized it. I had no reason to leave the Sekimeiya in the cabinet, even though I wanted to hide it far from me. It didn't have to be in hallway B. So, I didn't want to leave the Sekimeiya here, aside from the fact that it would be consistent with what I'd lived through. It would only bring negatives. What that seemed to indicate though was that if I didn't leave the Sekimeiya in that cabinet, Sai would still manage to avoid being found. After all, I would not be doing it to change the past. Disregarding my own interests purely to be consistent with what I'd already experienced was how everything had worked so far. That was what I was curious about and what I wanted to observe from a distance. How was Sai going to escape detection? Your guess is as good as mine. I guess I'll just go invisible. The more I thought about it, the more I believed that leaving the Sekimeiya in the cabinet wasn't the call. When I was sure, I looked at the door. It hadn't been properly closed, so I widened the gap without making a noise. It was as I'd thought. I could see Atsuki sleeping next to the hallway A door. Then I took one step forward. Immediately, Atsuki's eyes opened. Raising his head, he stared right at me. I turned and walked down the hallway to reach the storeroom. It really had been me. At that time, I denied it completely, but the person Atsuki had seen was the same me, in a sense. From inside the storeroom, I heard Atsuki slowly walking. He circled the floor until he was back at the event room. Next, they would go to the security room and check the time before going to the attic. Something had just caught my eye. The green light was on the hallway's camera. Shiroya, are you around? It was ridiculous. I was, in fact, but I didn't want to be seen. Such a nonsensical prediction had turned out true. Our old selves walked to the stairs to reach the attic. As soon as they were gone, I left as well. I left the Sekimeiya on the crystal room floor, as I hadn't wanted to be seen with it. Oh, don't tell me it's already going to be gone. Is this how Sai managed to disappear? That made a lot of sense, so I sped up. Could he have grabbed it so fast? No, it's still here. It was behind the door where I'd left it. Carefully, I picked it up. Where should I put it? Thinking about it, I walked to hallway C, where a sudden sound startled me. What? I retreated immediately. In hallway A, I'd just seen Sai. He hadn't seen me in return, but something was very odd. He'd been exiting the storeroom with a knife in his hand and was visibly shocked after looking at the stairs, where there was nothing. Slowly, I kept stepping back until I reached the lobby. The sound of his footsteps came from hallway B, then he started to open doors. Did he notice me? With his free hand, he'd been touching his mouth. He was the Psy who had chased us, and he was about to intercept the elevator with us inside. He's the one who I said would die. It's the Psy who locked me in the attic. Who said I would die, sorry. When he started getting closer, I approached hallway A. That way, I avoided being seen as I returned to hallway C. Psy appeared from the lobby and started to open doors in hallway A as well. What the hell is he doing? Seems like he's being silent on purpose. I knew he'd soon go up the floors, so I circled back to hallway B. My heart rate was increasing. I couldn't feel safe anymore. Why had Psy said that I would die? And why had he chased us with a knife? To make sure that we would die, I guess. His intentions were unfathomably enigmatic. However, I didn't think he'd declared my death because he'd already killed me. At one point, he'd said that he'd be the one to kill me if he had to. And the knife he was holding, where had he gotten it from? There was something to consider. I'd seen him exiting the storeroom, but he was searching through hallway A, so he'd been in the storeroom before inspecting this hallway. Could he have come from the outside door? It can't be, can it? But it would explain the knife and how he was in the storeroom right after I left. I heard something behind me and quickly hid myself in the cleaning room. Who was that? Someone had been in hallway B. When I considered it, I concluded it must have been Edina. I froze, wondering if she could have seen me. I still had the Sekimeiya, but I really didn't want to activate it. It seemed I hadn't been seen. I could hear her, but she wasn't coming. I didn't know what was happening, so I had to stay there. For a while, nothing happened at all. It changed when someone started to get closer. The steps came from hallway C. Are they coming over here? That's someone else, right? The sound got louder until it was coming from right behind the door. However, the steps kept going. This way of walking, it's gotta be Psy. Is he circling the floor again? He'd come from hallway C and disappeared toward the lobby side. Didn't sound like he'd looked into all the rooms again, so I was very confused. When the silence returned, it stayed for even longer. Did he go up the floors already? What about Edina? That must have been her, but where is she now? I thought about what would happen next in detail. Our past selves are in the attic, and they'll try to come back here soon. I guess I understand how the chase started. I think Psy was searching for someone while holding that knife. I don't know why, but it's very possible he wanted to find Atsuki. The elevator's on this floor, and Psy went up to search for Atsuki. When we called the elevator from the attic, he was on the 3rd floor and heard it. It's likely he figured it was empty, especially if he knew it had been on the crystal floor. It must have been called from the attic and was about to go back down. That's how he intercepted us. Seconds after we heard it, he must have called it from the 3rd floor, knowing someone would be inside. If he was looking for someone in particular, that might have been why he wasn't right outside when we opened the door. How did the chase go down though? We locked ourselves in the attic, but somehow we had another key to open it. We thought we couldn't try to lock ourselves in a bedroom because he might have taken its key, but later he and I teleported up here, and the key was still in the drawer. But that's not all, because I later learned that when we appeared, Psy had the keys to both bedrooms in his pocket. He even frowned when he saw one was in the drawer. That must be why he didn't take it to trap us. Did he think it wouldn't be there because he'd already taken it? After trying to escape, we all end up in the event room. I should be able to stay here and leave when that happens. I tried to loosen up. The cleaning cart was gone, so there was room on the floor to nervously walk in circles. They should be here soon. The chase didn't go on for that long. I had to attentively listen for our arrival, but my heartbeat wouldn't let me focus. It was late into the day. 9 o'clock was close to 2 hours away, and I'd touched the Sekimeiya in the bathroom a while before that. Such an important time was approaching, and I had no idea what to do. I perceived the faint, running steps I'd known would come. We were going to the event room. Shortly after they faded, the same sound repeated, and it quickly approached me. It was Psy. He had appeared from hallway B, running into Atsuki. To avoid being heard, he slowed down momentarily until he bumped against Atsuki. They'll be in the event room for a while. I should be able to leave now. I couldn't stay there or else Atsuki would see me. Nervously, I turned the doorknob and slowly opened the door. The event room was open, and I could faintly hear our voices. Carefully, I stepped into hallway C. I'll be fine here. It won't take much for Psy to run out. It's a good idea. Is it a good idea to try and see where he went? If I don't intend to change the past, it won't change. As long as that notion was correct. I could peek out from where I was, knowing I wouldn't be seen. He didn't have enough time to go to Hallway C, did he? I don't think so, and even if he had, his reappearance still wouldn't make sense. The Sekimeiya was getting too hot, urging me to drop it, but I resisted. So close to it, it was undeniable that it had been the emitter of the strange smell. While I awaited Sai's next move, I looked around me, wondering where Edna and Arcado were. Prepared to react, I stood in place. They couldn't hear us from there, but I knew I'd noticed Sai's escape. Then it happened. He dashed out of the event room, his swift steps reaching me. As fast as I could, I looked at the hallway. Huh? Confused, I hid myself before Atsuki saw me. Then, I glanced at the Sekimeiya. I still had it. I don't get it, why was he not found? Sai had dashed straight ahead, shutting himself inside room B4, where I'd just been. Could there have been a third Sekimeiya? If not, his disappearance couldn't be explained. No. I think I know what he did. At once I understood what had happened. Sai had merely been playing with us. He hadn't lied about that. It was absurd, but given his grin, I was sure it was the right answer. Something we'd told him and allowed him to pull off. Where'd you even get that knife? Did you kill Katai and Edna? No, I haven't killed anyone. Listen, there's a good question for you. I've seen Katai and Edna's corpses. If I'd killed them, how come there's no blood on my clothes? We told him Edna had died, but he knew the truth. Before, when he was looking through the floor, he came across Edna. Then she regained consciousness and left the room. When I was in the cleaning room, Sai walked through the hallway again. He might have been drawn to the sound and saw Edna was gone. In short, he knew she hadn't died, and that she wasn't in that room anymore. That was how he'd thought of a way to outsmart us, just like he'd said. He ran to that crystal room and covered himself with the curtain to make Atsuki think Edna was still beneath it. That had been his trick. I waited for Atsuki to enter the cleaning room and slowly stepped away. We didn't have time to search for the hallway, so I won't be found here. I returned to the secret section of the cold storeroom. It was about the time Sai and I had travelled to the attic, so I'd soon have no understanding of what would happen below. After a few seconds, I looked down at the glowing gem. The strong heat around the Sekimeiya seemed to have lessened. Did it cool down a little? It's still pretty hot, so it's not like I put it in the cold cabinets. That's weird. It didn't matter. I knew I had to think. I'd come to a final conclusion, but it was impossible. The time was rapidly approaching and it didn't seem like I'd made a decision that I wouldn't regret forever. While the minutes kept passing, it didn't feel like they were to me. I was firmly trapped with very little time left. I hadn't heard our past selves in some time, so it was likely we'd already travelled. Someone was walking in hallway A. Since I didn't know who it was, that meant my past self wasn't there anymore. Who was it? It could have been Atsuki, Edna, or Arcado. Even though Sai had escaped from the attic, I didn't think it could have been him yet, unless he had then travelled to the past. Soon, identical sounding steps passed by. They headed up the stairs. They just left the floor. I wonder if it was Atsuki. I wanted to leave, and that might have been a good time, but I hadn't been able to get rid of the Sekimeiya, and I had the opportunity to leave it in the cold. I couldn't see or hear anyone, so I stepped to the event room and slowly looked through the door. It was empty. Most importantly, the Sekimeiya wasn't on the floor, which meant someone had been there after our travel. It was probably Atsuki. I moved to hallway B and walked to the crystal room in front. Next to Naomi's body, the red curtain lay by itself. Without wasting time, I did what I'd planned earlier and left the Sekimeiya sealed away in the very first cabinet where we'd found it. When I closed it, a sound seemed to have locked it automatically. The wheel appeared damaged, but it still worked, so I was able to set the temperature to 0 degrees. Huh. Might not be a good idea to go back. Atsuki told me that he searched for me. If he comes to the stairs while I'm in the storeroom, I won't be able to leave before I'm found. If I'm here, I can avoid being seen by circling the hallways, like I did earlier with Sai. I realised something. Up until then, there'd been reasons to avoid being seen. At the point I'd reached, however, it wouldn't mean that much. My past self was in the attic, so as long as she can't see me, it shouldn't matter. I could be a bit calmer about that then. Technically, I was guaranteed to be seen again. It was what I'd been told. Not knowing what would happen was a little nerve-wracking, but Sai had been one person to see me. There was a bit of time left until that could happen, as he'd been in the attic for a while. Where the hell are Edna and Arcado? It's been so long since Arcado was seen. The one who had come to the bedroom wasn't the same one who had left with Sai. I know he's there though. I waited, expecting to hear someone at any point. Until then, the floor seemed deserted. was minutes later when I turned to the lobby. I thought I'd heard someone there. Was there anyone there? I expected them to come from the stairs. Seconds passed, and I hadn't heard anything else. I could have been mistaken, so I slowly stepped to the door. No one. Had I imagined it? I entered, drawn once again by the blood ahead. Without a doubt, it was where the bigger pool had been earlier. I didn't imagine it this time. There was someone in hallway A. I retreated slowly. Wait, there's someone in hallway B as well. I doubted what to do as I approached the mechanical room. I see. This is why I'll be seen. I can't enter either hallway, so as long as someone comes here, they'll find me. It'll probably happen even if I go down. My only move was to wait. When I thought about it, I'd realised that being found could have been good. As long as Atsuki was one of the people I'd heard, I could stop worrying about my well-being. If I was with him until my past self left the attic, I knew Sai and Akira wouldn't be a threat because Atsuki hadn't said that something would happen to me. But what would I tell him? No matter how much I wanted to talk to him, what could I possibly say? The Atsuki of this morning, where is he? Will I ever find him again? He was a future version of the Atsuki here, but how will everything lead into what happened? How will he end up at the beginning of this day? After my past self travelled to November, could I stay with Atsuki? Even though it was possible the exit wouldn't open, could I just stay with him? According to what he told me, that wouldn't happen, as instead a Shiroya who wasn't the real Shiroya would appear. Was it possible for me to change the reality in a way so that won't occur? The end was very uncertain, even more than the first time I'd gone through with it. I didn't know what would happen, what I would do, or what I could do. It didn't seem like anything was happening. I'd been expecting either door to open, but a few still minutes had already passed. I know I didn't imagine it. There was someone in both hallways. I guess it's just a matter of time since I know for a fact I'll be seen. Could it be that I've already been seen? What if I didn't know about it, but it had already happened? It didn't seem likely that I'd just be ignored, but I had no way to know. No matter what, there was nothing else I could do but stay in place. Roya? Hey, where... Atsuki? Shiroya, can you hear me? What's happening? Like a sharp needle, Atsuki's voice pierced into my chest. The pain in those words wasn't one I'd heard before. You're okay, right? If you can hear me, please come out. Say something. In the sudden manner they'd started, the shouts faded with a wail. Then, in their place, came a shrill cry. Atsuki was sobbing like a broken person. With a trembling hand, I grabbed the knob. As I pulled the door open, I saw Atsuki on the floor. He wasn't just crying, he was shaking. He was a wreck. Hey. My hoarse voice didn't reach him. Gently, and trying not to stagger, I stepped forward. When he saw me, he gathered himself enough to stop shaking and wearily stood up. Are you actually Shiroya? I didn't know what to say. When his eyes pierced into mine, any words I could have prepared flew out of my mind. Where were you? What's with those clothes? Are you the same person who disappeared with Sai? Same person? I'm not. Not in the sense he means. I felt like my voice was stuck in my throat and my thoughts were all over the place. Had that exact conversation always happened while I'd been in the attic? I'm sorry, I'm very confused too. I guess so though. You guess so? What do you mean? You remember everything, right? Right now? I stopped myself. From hallway C, a figure approached. Yes? It was Edina. The look in her eyes and the way of walking had cut me off. When Atsuki turned around, he hardly reacted, so I wondered if he already knew what had happened to her. I'm glad to see you two are safe. I was a bit worried. What's with those clothes? You weren't wearing them earlier, were you? Who the hell are you? Or even you? How can you two exist? What? It was the Edina we'd thought had died. Her clothes were stained with blood, and she appeared to be groggy. Where were you? How'd you just appear out of nowhere? In response to that, Edina slowly knitted her brow. What do you not understand? Did you just pop into existence at some point? No? Why do you say that? Have you looked in that room? Your body is there. What? That one? It can't be. I knew you were lying. I can't be here. Of course not. Shiroya, what the hell is happening? Answer my other questions. How can you exist when it shouldn't be possible? Did the same thing happen to Edina? To Edina? She should be dead, right? I stepped to the door. Of course, Edina's body was no longer there. About Edina, I think I know what happened. I think what happened isn't what you think. That's probably right. I can't think of anything anymore. Under those stained clothes, there's no wound, right? Huh? There never was one. The body you think disappeared is her. You mean she never died? I nodded. When we found Edina, The shock of Katai's death was still affecting us. We hadn't checked to confirm her death because we hadn't even doubted it. Are you serious? Were you playing dead then, or just unconscious? It doesn't look like you feel very well. I'm not sure. I remember I was drawn to this room and then I think I blacked out. Drawn? By a noise? No, something stronger, but I'm not sure what exactly. I don't know whose blood this is, but since I woke up, I felt groggy and numb. I see. I had no idea what that was about. I'd been in the room when she'd appeared, but I hadn't sensed anything like that. Shidoya, do you remember finding her body as well? And you realize what had happened. What really happened. You still haven't explained what you're doing here. Are you the same Shidoya who disappeared from the event room with Sai? I wish I could explain everything to you, but I still don't really know what happened. But yes, I'm really glad to see you again. I smiled and felt a wave of relief. It didn't matter that I didn't know why I was here again. Those words have been the most sincere of my life. What's with those clothes then? Why is the cross not on them? Did you ignore me when... Why did you ignore me when we saw each other in the event room? And when I kept shouting your name? Well, Hey, I'm still confused, but I have a question. Huh? The Sekimeiya, does it really make you travel through time? How does it work then? What? If I understand it, touching it with your skin activates it, right? And then you can go far out of the past if it's out of the cabinet for a while. That's what I've been working under, yeah. He looked at me in case I had an objection, even after everything that had happened. That still should have been correct, so I nodded uncertainly. I was thinking, why didn't I just go back in time to save Isla? Atsuki and I looked at each other and I wondered about her proposition. What would happen if Edna changed the past? What would happen to the world and to us? I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier. Someone killed her a few hours ago, so I should just have to travel to that point and prevent it. Saving Isla was something I could do. It should have been possible given what I knew. But I couldn't find the Sekimeiya. I kept looking at Isla's face for a very long time and she told me that she could be saved. Then I saw a girl, and after that I heard you shouting. A girl? You saw Shidoya? I guess it couldn't have been anyone else. It was Mia, that's right. It must have been Shidoya. Oh, she did? I wonder if she's talking about the time before she fell unconscious, when I was in the crystal room with her. I also saw what happened to Katai. It looked horrible. Did someone do that? Couldn't have been an accident. But anyway, the Sekimeiya's not the event room. Are you sure? Do you know where it could be? I really need to find it. No, I suspect Sai or Akado must have taken it. I knew where one was, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Once again, the decision of whether to change the past had to be made, and I couldn't do it. Are you lying? What? No, I'm not. Is he not? Who is the Sekimeiya Sai and I travelled with? If he does, I understand why he'd lie. Right now, he believes the past can't be changed. Actually, that's right. He changed his mind on that before I got out of the attic. He said he'd change the past. I frowned. What exactly is going to happen? The way you two reacted, you don't want me to save Isla, do you? That's not it at all. Remember that Sai and Akado had the cabinet key. They probably took the Sekimeiya away. It seemed Edna was seeing through us. Discontent, she walked to the event room. I knew it. You were lying. Huh? You didn't want me to look at the cabinet. Sekimeiya's here. Did Atsuki leave it in the cabinet? I don't think he would have. I looked at him, as I thought. He was very confused. The Sekimeiya shouldn't have been there. Edna opened the glass and rolled the Sekimeiya into her purse, not wanting to touch it for the time being. Then she immediately let the curtain fall back down. After a long silence, the hallway A door opened. When we looked over, someone was stepping into the room. It was Sai. He'd already escaped from the attic. What's up? What the fuck are you even doing here? Did you succeed with that plan of yours? Oh, not quite, unfortunately. I thought Edna was dead. What's she doing with the Sekimeiya? You thought that too? No, I'm going to the past to save Isla. Huh? I doubt that. The past can't be changed. That's nonsense. I'm going to the past, so I'll prevent Isla from dying. You've used the Sekimeiya before, right? How long do I need to wait to go enough hours back? It should be about 15 minutes, but I still find it unlikely it'll change anything. So, where the fuck did you go? Were you in the attic? Do you know where Shidoya went? I saw her disappear with you. Isn't she next to you? What's with those clothes anyway? Aren't they from here? They are. I see, they're definitely an improvement for you. And just ignore me, Atsuki. I was busy sorting something out. Sorting something out, I couldn't help but visibly react, as I knew he'd just locked himself in locked my past self in the attic. Oh right, I'd forgotten about this too. I found this just now. I tried to read it, but my head hurt a lot. Do you know what it is? Out of nowhere, Edna took out a piece of paper from her purse and handed it to Atsuki. I saw some black letters on it, but I didn't recognize what it was. It's this poem thing. Immediately stashed it in his pocket. Hey, what was that? Don't mind me, like you said. You look pretty nervous. I saw something written here. You were pretty in control of things when you pulled off that trick with the key earlier, so why is it making you get all worked up? Do you want to hide it that badly? It's just a personal paper. It has nothing to do with you or the Sekimeiya. Very intriguing then. A personal paper? I didn't think I'd seen it before. When I glanced at him, he immediately looked away, leaving me a little surprised. So, did any of you see Mia? What? Who? You don't know her, right? I knew I wasn't going insane. How do you know that name? She's the person I was with earlier. Before I saw you two, it just came back to me. I don't know where she went though. What? What just happened? That's not possible. How could you have seen Mia? What's with that reaction? Don't you see she's just delirious? She didn't die, but I have a pretty good idea of what happened to her. Say, did you hallucinate someone? That's not it. That's not just some name she made up. Do you know this person then? We do, but Edna couldn't have seen her. She couldn't be here. Are you sure? She could have entered through the storeroom. She could have travelled from the future since the Sekimeiya is bound to be exposed to the outside world. That's not what she means. She's not anywhere right now. Oh, is she dead? Wait, Mia, you said? That was the biggest blow I'd been dealt in a long time. I'd grown to think I partially understood what had happened, but a few words had shattered everything. What did it mean? Could it have been another prediction from the world? Had my own decision been handed to me, confirming that I would save Mia? There was no way that didn't make sense. If I changed the past, many more things would have differed as well. Sorry, my voice is giving out of me. No, she's with us. She has red hair, right? Did you actually see her? What did she say? My voice is still cracking. I can't keep it up. She told me her name. It's time to wrap this one up anyway, so we'll get to the end of this, and I'll take a quick break. She told me her name, but she didn't look lost or anything. She knew me too. She just suddenly ran away, and I haven't seen her again. I definitely thought I hadn't seen her before, but I honestly wasn't sure. There's no way to make sense of what she was saying. It seemed the structure of the world had been warped beyond comprehension. I don't know how to interpret this. Did you all agree to make up the story for when I appeared? Shut up. Well, I'm trying to figure things out for myself, and I thought I was close to understanding quite a bit, but now there's a bunch of shit I don't get, and it doesn't feel great. You did mean she died, right? Is saving her with the Sekimeiya not an option? So shut the fuck up. If it was, I promised you that we would have done it. Was Atsuki right? I didn't know anymore. I'd never known. Saving Mia alongside everyone else should have been possible. Travelling days to the past could soon occur. How could that not have tied into what Edna had said though? There was no longer anything that made sense. It's probably been close to 15 minutes already, right? I'd say so, yeah. It's been almost 15 minutes since I arrived. Are you sure I'll go far enough back? She died at around 2 o'clock, right? Should be, yeah. Okay, I'm going then. Are all of you coming with me? Don't worry. We're far enough from you. I understand. Well, goodbye for now. Side kept lying to Edna, claiming 15 minutes is long enough to go hours back. However, I couldn't be entirely sure that was impossible. As she got her hand close to her purse, the three of us stepped back. Given what we knew about the range, we should have been outside it. Yeah, but Sai's gotta travel. We already know that. But I was concerned. Were we highly mistaken about how the range worked? I didn't stop retreating until Edna's hand contacted the Sekimeiya. And when it did, something I hadn't even imagined occurred. Sai was the only person to disappear. What? Wait, what? I was speechless. Edna had touched the Sekimeiya, and we'd been further away than Sai. It didn't make any sense. Why had he been the only one to travel? Why didn't it work? Did Sai disappear? Was everything he said a lie? It was almost laughable. We'd always been so far from the truth. Admit it. Did you ever want me to save Isla? Were you involved in the first place? You're wrong. We don't know how the Sekimeiya works, but this shouldn't have happened. No matter what I thought, it didn't make sense. I couldn't even come up with a baseless explanation. Wait, where did it go? It's not here. Edna was glaring at her purse. It was empty. Wait, what? The Sekimeiya disappeared? It teleported. Perplexed, Atsuki walked to the cabinet. When he raised the curtain, he saw the Sekimeiya sitting comfortably behind the glass. Did it teleport to the cabinet? This is what Atsuki had talked about. Atsuki, tell me, what do I need to do to travel through time? Exactly what Sai and I told you. I don't know why it didn't just work. No, that's not it. The Sekimeiya didn't teleport. That's wrong. We went to a different world. I thought back on what had just happened. Edna opened the glass and rolled the Sekimeiya into her purse, not wanting to touch it for the time being. Then she immediately let the curtain fall back down. Perplexed, Atsuki walked to the cabinet. When he raised the curtain, he saw the Sekimeiya sitting comfortably behind the glass. She didn't close the glass before lowering the curtain, but it's closed right now anyway. The Sekimeiya didn't teleport. I looked at the floor and my heart skipped a beat. There was no drop of blood. And the only reason only Sai disappeared was that we travelled to a different universe, but Sai didn't. Can I not save Isla? Why did it not work? Oh, of course. What was I thinking? Travelling to the past is impossible. You lied about it since the beginning, right? That's why it didn't work. It can't happen. I actually fell for it. Just wait here, I'll be back in a second. Before we could react, Atsuki went to hallway B. I left Edina behind and saw him entering the staff room. Oh, he went to the staff room, was I right? But I didn't get it. The Sekimeiya should have been in the cabin. I promptly came back out. Did it disappear? Yeah. I see, so it is as I thought. What do you want to do? Oh, I'm just intrigued by Sai's whereabouts because an extra version of him has existed somewhere in the past. Did we never see him in so many hours? I'm not sure, but he has to be somewhere. And with that, we're going to wrap this episode up here before my voice gives out, because struggling with this one for some reason. It's a lot of words. We've been recording this for a long time now. And it's a lot of words per episode, you know what I mean? I don't really even have time to give running commentary because we have so many words to do. We got so many words to do, you know? Anyway, we're getting close to the end on this chapter, I would imagine, but I mean, I've thought that for a while, so who knows? Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.